All right, continuing with our breaking news coverage, Israel has launched an airstrike in southern Lebanon this morning, hitting 40 targets at least. The IDF says the strike was a preemptive move in self-defense to sabotage an imminent attack from Hezbollah. The attack being the response to last month's killing of Hezbollah's commander Fouad Shukur.
But Hezbollah, they didn't sit quietly. In response to the strikes, Hezbollah began launching their own missiles and drones, obviously towards Israel. But the IDF says little damage was caused. Joining us now, please welcome in National President of the Zionist Organization of America, Morton Klein. Good morning, Mr. Klein. It's always good to have you on the show. We appreciate your input. The IDF minister, Yoav Gallant, has declared a state of emergency now for the next 48 hours in Israel. Do you see this back and forth turning into a larger confrontation? It looks like the initial strike against Israel hit a couple of chicken coops, so no big damage there, thankfully. But is there going to be escalation?
First of all, you should understand that this is a pretext. Israel killing this Hezbollah leader. Hezbollah has launched over 30,000 rockets in the last 20 years. For no reason at all. They just launch them whenever they feel like it. So if Israel didn't kill this terrible, monstrous terrorist leader, they would still be launching rockets. And Israel is doing the right thing, of course, as any country would, to preemptively try to stop them from killing Israeli citizens. If Lebanon responds, there will be an open conflagration. There will be a significant escalation in the war because Israel has no choice but to protect their civilians. The Hamas, Arabs, Iran started this war. And as the gentleman said before, had we in America not funded Iran $26 billion, ignoring sanctions that enable them to make $100 billion from oil, Iran couldn't be funding and arming Hamas and Hezbollah. Iran is the culprit, and they're the ones directing what Hezbollah to do. If Hezbollah doesn't respond in any significant way, it'll be over temporarily. It's up to Hezbollah.
Well, an Israeli delegation is still heading to Cairo, allegedly, ceasefire negotiations with Hamas. I don't know how you negotiate with Hamas, but that's what's on the table. Do you see this really being anything of substance? I mean, they're on their way to Cairo while there's attacks going on and rockets in the air. So what do you make of this?
The terrorist group Hamas, run by Iran, doesn't want to make a deal unless Israel agrees to a permanent ceasefire. And now their leader, Sinwar, said, you must promise not to kill me. He wants his own protection. Israel cannot do a permanent ceasefire because the mission has not been completed. Israel has got to destroy Hamas and Hezbollah before they can stop the war. So I see no possibility of any deal here because of Hamas's demand for the war to end. Israel cannot allow that. Not only that, but Hamas says they'll only release 1/3 of the hostages if there's a ceasefire, not even all of them. And they said half the ones they release will be dead. The fear is out of the 115 hostages, Israel and the world is very afraid that very few of them are still alive because Hamas has just brutally murdered them in cold blood. The bodies that Israel just recovered in Gaza of Israelis, they were found riddled with bullets. This is the most heinous, monstrous, Nazi-like terrorist group we have in the earth today.
Yeah. Morton, look, I was in Chicago this week for the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, and there was protests that were happening outside as expected. Take a look. You can see them there on your screen. There was thousands of anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protesters, but the organisers said there was going to be hundreds of thousands there, but there was lucky to be 10,000, all up. Where do you think the Democratic Party stands now with these protesters, given the fact that they weren't let in the building, they didn't let any Palestinians speak, though they were demanding that they didn't. They basically ignored them, and they didn't have the support outside that they wanted. How will this affect the election?
Well, it's very disturbing that virtually none of the speakers condemned the protesters' outrageous lies that Israel's committing genocide. It is Hamas that wants to commit genocide. It's outrageous that they weren't condemning them for saying they want to globalize the Intifada in their signs. That means they want to murder every Jew and every American on earth and this wasn't being condemned. And also, my question, they're complaining about the civilians that are being killed. It's a war. Civilians die in wars. Why aren't they complaining about the Ukraine and Russia war, where tens of thousands of civilians have died? Why aren't they complaining about the 60,000 black Christians who've been murdered by radical African Muslims in Africa? And I would like to have heard leaders of the Democratic Party to have made those points and make it clear that these demonstrators are disgusting. Instead, what did Kamala Harris say? This is shocking. She said, I understand the emotions of these protesters. Can you believe this? I understand their emotions. She's encouraging, energizing, and legitimizing these protesters calling for Israel's destruction and calling for the murder of every Jew on earth. And she has explained that she understands their emotion. And Biden, in his speech, said, I think these protesters have a point. Really? They have a point? You mean to destroy Israel and murder every Jew? I don't think so. This was very disappointing to me as an American and especially as a Jew.
Yeah, no, listen, Morton, I think that ultimately history will show where the Democrat Party went off the rails and is on the wrong side of history. I really do. We are just about out of time, so we're going to have to leave it there, but we always appreciate your insight. I'm really hoping that the protests are not as bad on college campuses as they were before the semesters ended, but we'll see, and we'll certainly have you back to discuss it more. So thank you so much and have a great morning.
Thank you, Morton. We always appreciate having you on.